This video is all about the mysterious death of Gloria Satterfield, a woman who had worked for the Murdaugh family for over 2 decades, and the questions that surround her death that relate to Alex Murdaugh, who is now serving 2 life sentences in federal prison for the murders of his wife and his youngest son, Paul. Here's an interesting fact for you. Gloria Satterfield fell on the Murdaugh estate on February 2nd, 2018. That fall tragically caused her death, and she died on February 26, 2018. Her death resulted in a $4.3 million payout from the company Nautilus. And that insurance money was supposed to go to Gloria Satterfield's estate and to her kids. Somehow, of course, the way only Alex Murdaugh can make things happen, that money ended up in his pocket. Now, the really interesting thing here is that he purchased the umbrella insurance policy that forced the $4.3 million payout on January 6, 2018, less than 1 month before Gloria Satterfield's fall. So why did the insurance company Nautilus make that payout in the first place, and why are they now going after the disgraced attorney for recuperating that monies in 2023? This is a story of Gloria Satterfield and the story that was told about her fall and her death by Alex Murdaugh and what's going on now. Recently, Alex Murdaugh allegedly admitted for the first time that it was not his dogs that Gloria Satterfield tripped over that caused her fall to happen on February 2nd, 2018, which later resulted in her death on February 26, 2018, but rather it was something else. For years, this was the official but highly questioned story of Gloria Satterfield's fall that caused her death. On the morning of February 2nd, 2018, according to Alex Murdaugh, Gloria Satterfield came to Moselle to pick up a paycheck. Now, that is going to be a very important detail, and we will get back to that in just one moment. On the way into the house, according to Alex Murdaugh, she was tripped by the family's dogs. She was walking up 8 steps on the front porch of the Moselle house and fell backwards. It was a violent fall where she gashed her head and suffered from serious head trauma, and a little over 3 weeks later, on February 26, Gloria passed away in a North Charleston hospital. Now, the reason that I say according to Alex Murdaugh is that all we have to go on is the 911 call made by MAGGIE and featuring Maggie and Paul and Alex Murdaugh's account. He provided all of the details of the day of Gloria Satterfield's fall, including the reason she went to Moselle, which was to pick up her paycheck, and the reason that she fell. Gloria's fall rendered her unconscious for the most part from the moment she fell, except for apparently one moment when Alex Murdaugh was in her hospital room, and only Alex Murdaugh was in her hospital room. And according to court papers, this is what happened. On March 29, 2018, Murdaugh stated that Miss Satterfield briefly regained consciousness, during which time she stated that Murdaugh's dogs had caused her to fall. This statement was heard by no one else and is contradicted by Miss Satterfield's later statement to hospital staff that she had no idea what made her fall. There was no mention of the dogs made in the 911 call, which is rather interesting in and of itself, and I will play it at the end of this video. So what's going on now with this case with Alex Murdaugh? Has his story changed? About a week ago, an attorney named Sarah Azari tweeted part of the court pleading between Alex Murdaugh and the company Nautilus that paid out big bucks in this case, $4.3 million to be exact. According to this court pleading that was filed on May 1st, 2023, Alex Murdaugh admits that he was lying when he told emergency responders and investigators that Gloria Satterfield fell because she tripped over the family dogs. Listen to this. Murdaugh states, no dogs were involved in the fall of Gloria Satterfield on February 2nd, 2018. After Miss Satterfield's death, Alex Murdaugh invented Miss Satterfield's purported statement that the dogs caused her to fall to force his insurance company to make the payout. And that's not all that Murdaugh did to force his insurance company to make the payout. Murdaugh also claimed, remember, that Satterfield was at his property not to perform work for Murdaugh and his family, but to collect a check for work performed by someone else. What did that do? That avoided the workers' compensation defense. If Gloria Satterfield was at Moselle to work and she was injured, workers' comp would kick in before his insurance policy would have to pay out. And how did the claim against his insurance policy happen anyway? The claim that resulted in the $4.3 million payout. Well, when Murdaugh was at the memorial services for Gloria Satterfield, he recommended to her children that they sue him for her death, that he had an insurance policy that would pay them because she died on his property. And you know what? They deserve that money, he told them. He recommended that they use the services of attorney Corey Fleming without telling them that Fleming was his best friend and co-conspirator in what has been described as a depraved plot to cheat the family out of the guaranteed payday. Now we know that Alex Murdaugh was easy and quick to tell a lie with no problem. Lying came naturally to Alex Murdaugh. We learned that through the trial of the double homicide of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Particularly now that we know that Alex Murdaugh lied about Gloria Satterfield telling him that she tripped over the dogs and that is why she fell, which was part of the story that was favorable to forcing the insurance company to make a big payout. We have to wonder if Gloria Satterfield fell for some other reason at the property and Alex's quick to manipulate thinking allowed him to come up with all of these details that manipulated the insurance company into making the $4.3 million payout. She fell over the dogs. She was there to pick up the paycheck, not to work. And that, he brought up the idea of the family suing him at her memorial services, knowing that they probably needed the money and they would probably listen to him as they likely respected him, without knowing that he was handing them off to shady Corey Fleming. We have to wonder if Gloria's death was planned or if Alec was just using his quick wit and thinking after an accident already occurred. Please leave a comment below letting us know what you think. I would love to hear what you think about that question. I certainly hope, for the sake of justice and for the peace of Gloria Satterfield's family, that the details of exactly what happened are revealed as Alex Murdaugh is put under more pressure as he is held accountable for the many financial crimes that he has committed, in addition, of course, to the murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Regardless of the details of how things went down with the Gloria Satterfield incident, and God rest her soul, what Alec did came back to bite him in a big way when his son Paul Murdaugh was driving a boat on February 24th, 2019, and he crashed the boat while intoxicated, and one of the passengers, sweet Mallory Beach, was tossed from the boat and lost her life. Alex Murdaugh was completely insufficiently insured to cover the accident and to render any payout from the insurance company to the family, because the insurance company would no longer insure him due to the payout that they had to hand over as a result of the claim made against Alex Murdaugh's insurance by his suggestion due to Gloria Satterfield's supposed accidental death on his property when she was not there to work but to pick up a paycheck for somebody else, and she supposedly tripped over the dogs, which we now know is not true. And in one rare moment of lucidity, after her fall, she made an utterance to Alex Murdaugh saying, "I tripped over the dogs." Unfortunately for Alex Murdaugh, the boating accident resulted in criminal charges against Paul, 3 felony counts of boating under the influence, to which he pled not guilty, and also a wrongful death civil lawsuit that named multiple parties, including Gregory Parker, the owner of the convenience store that sold Paul Murdaugh alcohol the night of the boating crash, and the Murdaugh family. Also, unfortunately for Alex Murdaugh, Mallory Beach's family's attorney was Mark Tinsley, who is a pit bull of an attorney.
That's how convincing he is. But he denies this confrontation. When Mark Tinsley was like, he bows up on Mark Tinsley. He's like, "What you doing, man, about the boat case?" And Mark says, "You're going to have to pay money to the Beach family. Millions of dollars." Alex doesn't have that. He's barely one step ahead of the game at this point. He doesn't have insurance coverage anymore, or at least not a big umbrella policy. And why? Because his insurance company dropped him after the Satterfield case. Insurance company thinks the money went to the Satterfield boys, but it didn't. They don't know that he's stolen it all, but they don't want to insure him anymore.
A theory can certainly be constructed that what Alex Murdaugh did to himself with the Gloria Satterfield case set him up for complete failure in the future when his son would be driving the boat, when he was underinsured, and when on June 7th, 2021, he was confronted by his office's chief financial officer, Jean Seckinger, about her suspicion with evidence that he was taking money from the firm. Although they weren't quite there yet, they didn't quite make the complete conclusion. They were well on their way, and Alex Murdaugh knew it. Now remember, it was 3 days later, after the murders of Maggie and Paul that happened on June 7th, 2021. On June 10th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh would be going to court with Mark Tinsley representing the Beach family, knowing that Mark Tinsley had filed a motion to open up wide to the world Alex Murdaugh's financial records for all of Hampton County and the world to see. This, one can imagine, was likely Alex Murdaugh's greatest fear. I believe that on June 7th, when Alex Murdaugh knew that Mark Tinsley filed that motion and he was self-admittedly starting to work on his financial records towards the boat case, towards that June 10th hearing, so Mark Tinsley could see exactly what was going on with his financial transactions, that the court was going to grant that motion, and that Alex Murdaugh was going to have to reveal enough about his finances, inevitably be the moment when the gig is up.
You got up that morning, or what time do you think you got up and left that day?
After having the benefit of looking at all these records, I don't know what time I got up. And looking at the records, obviously I've been up for a while, but it appears I left shortly after noon.
Okay. And you went to work?
I did, yes, sir.
And what were you working on at work?
I was working on this Dominion Energy case. Was primarily what I was working on. That we had motions coming up later in that week. As I said earlier, I believed at the time that it was the biggest case that I'd ever been involved in. And there were motions coming up in that. I was preparing. Danny Henderson, my partner that was helping me with the civil case from the boat wreck, had been on me about getting a financial statement, and I finished doing that so that it could be given to Danny. It's primary, is what I remember doing. Obviously, I talked to Jeannie, but.
Okay. And what time did you leave?
And I'm sure I did some other routine office things, but I can't tell you what they are.
All right. What time did you leave?
It appears that I left around a little after 6 from the records.
Okay.
I thought I'd left earlier than that, but I mean, the records seemed to be pretty clear.
All right. And you were, in fact, I think you said in many of your interviews that you were working on the boat case that day as well. Your financial declaration.
Yes, I prepared the financial declaration. I didn't do any work in this civil case. So my work in that is what I did. I prepared the financial statement, which took me a little bit of time to get the details on that. But I mean, that was the work I did in preparation for the motions.
When we look at the particular interrogatory right here that you have filed a motion to compel on, and what are you trying to get? What information are you trying to get with that interrogatory?
Well, you know, the way to, again, like in my example of the deal or no deal, I mean, what I'm trying to do is put pressure. He doesn't want me to have access to his accounts. At the time, I think it's because I'll see how much money he actually is making and how much he has. And so, you know, that's what I'm trying to do, is put pressure on him to force him into a settlement. You don't want it disclosed? Here are the keys to the jail. You enter into an agreement and let's go settle the case.
In the event, though, he doesn't settle in response to this, what information are you trying to get?
Well, it's certainly not a number. It's certainly not Alex's estimation of what his net value is. I wanted the accounts because I knew that the only way that he could be broke is that money had been hidden. And so I was going to look for and trace or begin that process of doing that.
All right, and explain that to the court. When you say that you knew that if he was, quote, broke, in your estimation, money had been hidden, and so therefore you were going to look for and trace that information. What do you mean by that? Why did you think money had been hidden?
Well, there wasn't any way he could be broke. I mean, I know he's actively settling cases. Some cases, big cases, some cases, small cases, but they stack up lots of cases. He's handling a lot of cases. So there's just no possibility that he could be broke by anyone's definition.
It didn't take people until May 1st, 2023 to know for a fact that Alex Murdaugh was lying about the circumstances of Gloria Satterfield's fall on his Moselle property. According to Ronnie Freedman, the caretaker of Moselle, he arrived at 7:30 a.m. on the day of February 2nd, 2018, and Gloria arrived in her vehicle at 8:30 a.m., just like she usually did on a work day. She had her McDonald's cup in one hand and her purse in the other, just like every other day when she arrived for work. It should be noted that it was never specified who Gloria Satterfield was supposedly picking up a check for, according to Alex Murdaugh's story. Remember, he said apparently she was picking up a check for another employee, and it seems that that part of his story was also a lie, pointing towards the fact that Alex Murdaugh likely made up all of the details that were told about her fall in order to activate his insurance for a large payout that he would steal from the Satterfield family. According to Ronnie, the caretaker at Moselle, 15 minutes after Gloria Satterfield arrived at the property, Maggie Murdaugh called him and she was hysterical. He asked what was wrong and she said, "Ron, you got to get up here. Gloria fell. There's blood everywhere." He quickly got to the house and he saw that Gloria Satterfield was laying on her back on the steps up to the house. There were, in fact, 8 steps, according to Ronnie Freedman. Her head was down on the landing and her feet were up above her on the steps. So Ronnie said, "We need to get her horizontal. So, hey, Paul, you need to grab her legs and I'll grab her shoulders. We got to get her horizontal." And they moved her to a more favorable position given the injury that she sustained. When Ronnie was asked later if Alex Murdaugh was there, because Alex Murdaugh had told people that he was there when Gloria fell, Ronnie said, "No, that's not true. He was not there," definitively. He clarified that the only people present were Gloria Satterfield, Maggie Murdaugh, Paul Murdaugh, and himself, Ronnie, the caretaker for Moselle. The 911 call was made by Maggie Murdaugh at 9:41 a.m. Maggie reports that the housekeeper had fallen and she was bleeding everywhere and she cannot get up. Paul also reiterates to the 911 dispatch that Gloria Satterfield was unable to talk, that she was incoherent, that she was just mumbling to him. A later report stated that Alex claimed he had talked to Gloria Satterfield that day and she said the dogs tripped her. But that did not happen according to Ronnie because Alex Murdaugh was not at Moselle yet. He was asked the question, so are you saying that Alex Murdaugh still wasn't there when EMS arrived? And Ronnie replied, correct. Also, Alex Murdaugh's work records show that he was, in fact, at work at the time of Gloria Satterfield's fall. Another interesting fact is that there was a medical University of South Carolina, which was an academic hospital, meaning that they're a teaching hospital, and these hospitals are usually up to date on the newest research and have the newest equipment and have the most state-of-the-art medical interventions available. Hands down, this hospital would have been the better choice. Or Prisma Health Richland Hospital in Columbia, where some of the leading studies in head trauma had been done. There was no reason to not move her there, except that some speculate perhaps Alex Murdaugh or another person in the Murdaugh family could impact the outcome of her case at Trident in Charleston, as opposed to a hospital that would have been better suited to treat her actual injury. The only thing that Gloria's family knew was that they were told she tripped and fell over the family dogs on the steps as she was walking up, and she fell backwards and hit her head violently, which is strange in and of itself since the injury was to the top of her head. Just imagine this, walking up a set of stairs, falling backwards, and having a fatal injury to the top of the head. It just doesn't make sense. The family says that Gloria was unresponsive to them the whole time she was in the hospital from day one to her very last day. She died and she could never even tell them what happened. What was in Gloria Satterfield's medical file? Well, here it is. It says, Maggie Murdaugh came outside and found Gloria Satterfield on the steps bleeding from an open wound on her head. Maggie Murdaugh told Alex Murdaugh, who arrived soon after, about the dogs tripping her up. Gloria Satterfield made no statement to any witness about the involvement of the dogs. Gloria Satterfield told medical staff in a moment of consciousness at the hospital that she did not know how or why she fell. It is also noted, very interestingly, in her medical file that she was making substantial improvement, but then began to decline and was placed on a ventilator. She eventually contracted pneumonia, had a heart attack, lost her pulse, and was left in a deep coma. Her family elected to stop life-saving measures, and she passed away in hospice care on February 26, 2018. This makes many people think of what happened to Hakeem PInckney. Hakeem PInckney was one of many victims of Alex Murdaugh, who he stole hundreds of thousands, in total at least $9.3 million from, when the people came to him for help after being injured in an accident. Hakeem PInckney was in a horrible accident and was left to be a quadriplegic. Still, Alex Murdaugh stole $500,000 from him. Yes, let that sink in. This man who came to Alex Murdaugh for help, he and his mother, who was left a quadriplegic after a horrible accident, was taken advantage of by Alex Murdaugh. Hakeem PInckney also died in the hospital under suspicious circumstances, and I'm going to be doing a video about Hakeem PInckney very soon. I will explain those suspicious circumstances. It's a very interesting story, and we should remember Hakeem PInckney and his life. After Gloria Satterfield's death, there is another interesting testimony that we can look at, and that's from Morgan Dougherty, who is Paul Murdaugh's former girlfriend. She said that Paul Murdaugh was so sad when Gloria died. She explained how much Paul loved Gloria and that Gloria had practically raised him. She was very much a mother figure to Paul. Morgan went on to explain about a time when Gloria Satterfield found pills in a little baggie taped up underneath Alex Murdaugh's bed. After she found the pills, she went to Paul because she was afraid to go to Maggie. According to Morgan Dougherty, this happened early in 2018, just about a month prior to Gloria Satterfield's death. Morgan Dougherty had suspicions that the Murdaughs were involved in Gloria's death, or that they at least prevented an investigation from happening. She said that she knew Gloria was in the hospital, and one day when she was visiting Paul at Moselle, Alec came home and said, I saw her in the hospital today. I went to visit Gloria, and 2 days later, Gloria died. Morgan also talks about going to the funeral with Paul. She said that after the funeral, Alex Murdaugh told her and Paul that he was going to sue himself and that he was going to give them Satterfield boys the money. That's right. Alex Murdaugh told Paul and Morgan that he was going to sue himself. Morgan Dougherty said the effect this had on Paul was to make him happy. He said his dad was going to do great things, and he was relieved to know that Gloria's family was going to be okay after all. The reason Morgan says she has not voiced her suspicions until now is because, like many people, while Alex Murdaugh was a free man, she feared the retribution that she may face if she told her story. Morgan says it's super weird that Gloria found the drugs. She told Paul. Paul was forcing Alec to go to detox, and then Gloria ends up dead. She says, and I quote, I think something happened to her, and I don't think it was handled properly. As with most things, maybe all things, with Alex Murdaugh, there are so many questions still surrounding the death and the injury of Gloria Satterfield, and the story that Alex Murdaugh told or created about her death and his motive for doing so. There's also a question of how connected is this event to Alex Murdaugh's eventual breakdown or his motive for murdering his own wife and his youngest son. We will continue to stay up to date on this case, everything having to do with Alex Murdaugh and the many trials and entanglements that are connected to Alex Murdaugh and the Murdaugh family. Like many of you, I'm sure, and I know, this channel's primary focus is supporting justice for those who have not received justice and finding peace for the families of victims of people like Alex Murdaugh. As promised, here is the 911 call made by Maggie Murdaugh, featuring Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, about Gloria Satterfield's fall. I did the best I could to enhance the audio, so I hope that you can hear that enhancement and hear a little more in this version of the 911 call.
9:24 a.m. 38 seconds, February 2, 2018.
Come here.
911, where's your emergency?
4147 Moselle Road.
Okay, can you give me the address one more time, make sure I got it right?
Yes, 4147 Moselle Road.
Okay, what's going on out there?
I'm sorry?
What's going on out there?
My housekeeper has fallen and her head is bleeding. I cannot get her up.
Okay, you said she's fallen. She's bleeding from the head?
Yes,
Okay. How old is she?
I'm not sure, like 58 maybe.
Do you know if she fell from standing or not?
No.
Where'd she fall from?
She fell going up the steps, up the brick steps.
Okay, so she outside or inside?
Outside.
Okay. How many steps is there?
8.
Okay, is she on the ground or is she up near the
She's
top?
on the ground. She's on the ground.
Is she conscious?
No, not really.
Is she awake at all?
Yes.
Okay. Is she just not, like, responding appropriately, but she is awake?
Ma'am, she's not responding.
Okay, I've already got them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down, ma'am. Knowing if she's conscious is one of the things that the medic needs to know if she's responding
Not
at
really.
all to you.
No.
Okay, so she's not responsive at all.
Well, I mean, she's mumbling.
Okay, so she is somewhat conscious. Is she breathing okay?
Yes.
Is she bleeding from anywhere?
Yes, her head.
Okay, are you guys able to control the bleeding?
No.
Can you
I
put
haven't
a
even
clean
tried.
rag or anything on it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, is she bleeding from, like, her face, the back of the head,
I've got
her
an
neck?
ambulance coming. Sir, ma'am, what?
Where exactly is she bleeding from on her head?
I'm not sure. At the top of her head.
Okay.
What's it?
Okay.
Oh,
Can-
gosh.
What happened?
She just fell back down. Can I get off this phone so I can go down there?
Can I have your name and phone number? Or are you able to bring the phone down by her?
What?
Or are you on a cell phone where you can walk down there
I'm
and
on
talk?
a cell phone. No.
Okay, can you bring it with you so we can ask her some questions about what kind of pain she's having?
Hello?
Yeah, can you ask the patient what kind of pain she's having?
Ma'am, she can't talk.
Okay, do you know,
She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete and she's bleeding out of her left ear.
okay, she's bleeding out of her ear?
And out of her head. She's cracked her skull.
Okay. All right, the other lady said that she had tried to stand up and fell down again?
No, I was holding her up. And
Okay.
she told me to turn her loose and she was trying to use her arm, but then she fell back over.
Okay, do you guys know who she is?
Yes, she works for us.
Okay, do you know if she's ever had a stroke or anything before?
Ma'am, can you stop asking all these
I
questions?
already have them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down in any way. These are relevant questions that I have to ask for the ambulance. One of my questions is, has she ever had a stroke?
I don't believe she's ever had a stroke, not that I know
Okay. Okay, is she able to talk to you guys at all, or is she unconscious now?
of. She's not unconscious, she's just mumbling.
Okay.
I believe she's maybe hit her head and maybe has a concussion or something.
Okay.
Maybe.
Do you know what her name is?
Gloria Satterfield.
You said Sanderfield?
Ma'am?
You said Sanderfield?
Satterfield.
Satterfield. Okay, what's the house look like out there?
It's offset off the road.
Okay.
It's a big house, got a wide driveway.
With a long driveway?
Yeah,
Is there a gate or anything down there that they're going to need to come through?
There's two big brick columns that have to come through.
Okay, but there's no, like, gate code or anything that they need?
No, ma'am. And tell them that they can look for a fellow on a 656 Ranger.
Okay.
Waiting on them in the road is green. You know what they probably know what the Ranger looks like.
Yeah. You said, like,
Fella's
green.
got on a black sweater,
Okay.
a hat, and pants.
Okay. All right.
All right.
If something changes with her, if she loses consciousness or anything like that, I need one of you guys to call me back right away, okay?
Okay, well, how long is it going to take? Because this take us...
That I don't know. I've had them on the way since Maggie first called me. They were toned right away.
Okay.
All right, but I think they're coming... Hang on 1 minute. Let me check. They're coming from somewhere on Bells Highway in Ruffin, okay? That's where their station is.
Thank you.
All right, but like I said, if something changes, call me back.
Yes, sir.
Okay.